What's up, gang? Welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mershazde. I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now listen, the Greatness Machine, we're about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world and doing both of these things despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews with game changers, business leaders, telling us their origin stories, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now. Why? So it can help you step into your greatness within your life, your business, and your career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, moi, as I leverage my 20 years of entrepreneurship as a CEO and founder to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation, and I'm stoked to have you here with me. Guys, welcome to today's episode of The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mershazde, and boy, do we have a special guest. My man, Ron Omani Carson is in the house. What's up, Ron?
Hey, it's great to be here, Darius.
Oh, man, I'm so pumped to have you here. So do you mind here at The Greatness Machine? I like to do a little bit of housekeeping. We got a lot of new listeners every week. Do you mind if I do a little bit of housekeeping and we'll get started?
Shoot. Yeah, absolutely.
So for listeners who are new to the show, The Greatness Machine, we're about two things. People are living their passions and those creating greatness in the world and doing so despite the odds. And my man, Ron Omani, is neither short of passion nor greatness. So first and foremost, before I tell about why I asked Ron to be on the show, we had a little bit of pre-show conversation around your name. It's Ron Omani Carson. Do you prefer Ron or Omani or like Mr. Carson? Give me the lowdown.
Okay. So I changed it on social media a few years ago, and I had lots of questions around that. And as you hear my story, Darius, there was the 0 to 50, and then there's 50 and beyond. And I really found spirituality, and in that work and doing some coaching, I was doing some work with the Lakota tribe, and as a way of showing their appreciation for the work I had done with and for their tribe, they inducted me into their tribe and gave me a name, which is Tate Omani, which means walking into a stiff wind. And I shortened it Omani. So tons of grace. If people want to call me Ron, that's fine. All my new friends call me Omani. Anybody in that space knows me only as Omani. So I'm cool either way.
All right. Omani it is. We're going
All
there.
right.
All right. So Omani, this is we were talking before the show. So we invited Omani to be on the show because I'm new, as the audience knows. Anyone that's listening to the show knows that I've gone headfirst into the wealth management space. And what most people don't know about the wealth management space that I've learned, this is at least my perception, is that there's this small set of rock stars in the space. Joe Duran, my partner, I would consider him one of them. Ron's one of them. Omani is one of them. You have Peter Maluk. There's this small group of these godfathers, people of the space. And Ron's name, and you know who they are because you hear their names come up constantly. And Omani's name comes up constantly. It's like every time I'm talking to someone, they're like, "Oh yeah, we were talking to the Carson Group. Oh yeah, we were talking." And in the space that they call you Ron, that's what you're known as. So
yeah,
it's like, "Oh yeah, I was talking to Ron, and Ron tried to buy my company, and I had a conversation with Ron. It's always Ron tried to buy my company, by the way. That's what comes up all the time. But I hear so many great things. And one of the first conversations I had was with one of my business partners, Dan Newhall. And when we were talking about starting Rise Growth Partners, he's like, we were talking about coaching entrepreneurs. And he said, "Oh yeah, that's the Carson, the Carson Group. That's what they do." So it's the very first time I heard your company, but I'd heard just amazing things about it. And so as I started to get deeper and deeper in the space and over the past year, I was like, I should we got these God folks of the space, these God people of the space. I should get to know some of them. And, I really want to learn their stories because this is where I'm spending my time now. And so top of my list was Omani. I hit him up and amongst a few other folks. And here we are, man. I'm so pumped to have you here to tell your story. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for asking me. It's I love doing these kinds of things, and I love listening. I'm a consumer of podcasts and material, and I think like you, we've only met for a few minutes, but you're a lifelong learner. And, I view my whole life as a bucket with a hole in the bottom of it, getting rid of the old, useless, out-of-date information and replenishing it with new, fresh ideas. And so thank you for having me. And I really look forward to our time together.
Definitely. Omani, do you mind if I do a little bit of the formal bio just for folks that are less
Sure.
familiar with
Yeah,
yourself?
absolutely.
Omani here is the CEO and founder of the Carson Group. They currently help 49,000 families. They manage over 33 billion in assets under management, which is no small feat. He's grown the firm to become an industry innovator, an influencer, and the leader of now 350 person firm. Um, they are literally one of the best firms in the wealth management space. He started it in his dorm room in 1983. So over 40 years ago, we can say that now. It's over 40 years since it's 2024 as of today, and he believes in advising for life's purpose. Recognized as a top financial firm, authored best-selling books, and contributes to major publications like Forbes and Bloomberg. Now, everyone that's listening to this is like, okay, this guy's a fucking stud. You know, he's made it. But as I always say, like most of our guests, you know, making it and is not where you start. Humble beginnings in the dorm room. Would love, Omani, if you could give us some of your origin story. And I forgive me, I didn't tell you. I get a little R-rated sometimes with my
Oh
potty
no,
mouth.
it's yeah. I got a funny story on that too. But yeah, you know, it's so funny you say that. Like as I'm listening to you say, make it. Before I even give you some of the run up, I just want to touch on that because I had, my life. I'm 59 years old. I turned 60 August 28th of 24, and I, in spite of all the outward appearances, I felt like a failure up until about the age of 50. I mean, I had had tremendous financial success, but I had no purpose, no joy. And as I get to poking around, I realize there's a lot of super successful people out there. I think what drives us is this fear and scarcity operating system, which when I tell you the story, you'll get why. Until I can move to love and abundance and really start to feel deep, deep purpose in my life, that's when I felt like I really arrived. And it had nothing to do with the financial success. It had to do with, really loving myself and loving what I meant and when I showed up and how I was showing up for me and for people around me. The story is this: I grew up an hour north of Omaha, Nebraska, on a farm, and we were farmers. And when in 1982, I thought I was going to take over the family farm. In 1982, interest rates were 21.5%. My parents went broke like pretty much every other farmer did. And my father, only time I ever, first and only time I've ever seen him cry when he told me that he couldn't even support our family. I was going to have to find something else to do. And, when you think you just know what's going to happen, it really rocked my world. I was like, wow. And plus seeing my hard ass dad cry for the first time, it scared me. And I remember reading Money Magazine, and it talked about top professions of the future. And right at the top of the list was become a CFP. I didn't even know what it was. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do that. And so I decided I went down to Nebraska to play football and was injured my first year. And that's why I started out of my college dorm room. And I'd love to tell people I did all this research or, I didn't. I thought that sounded interesting. I always had an interest in money. My parents had almost gone broke prior to that. So it seemed like our family could use someone in the family that knew something about, financial discipline. And by the way, a footnote to that story is I was in Napa Valley at the wine auction a few years ago, and a lady friend, Jessica Biblowitz, her dad was Sandy Wild, who ultimately started really what became Citigroup. And we had known because she tried to buy my company at one point. And so she introduces me. I didn't even know she was going to be there. And she's like, hey, meet my friend. This is Ron. He's from Omaha. Here's what I do. And the lady says, well, how'd you get in the profession? I told her the story. She has a weird smile on her face. And she goes, I was at Money Magazine. I wrote that article. And
No
I'm like,
way.
oh, wow. Then I do owe you my entire profession.
Let me ask you a question. So your family, you come from a farming background. What did you guys farm?
Corn, soybeans, alfalfa, popcorn occasionally, and we raise cattle.
Were you, I got, this is a stupid question. I'm gonna ask it just for the hell of it, but I got to assume like you were working on the farm as a kid, like growing
Uh-huh.
up.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
People are like, did you work out? Because listen, we worked out every freaking day. There was
Yeah.
no going to the gym to work out.
So you'll appreciate this. I was a wrestler in college, and I wrestled D1, and I went to a wrestling camp in Minnesota. And now, unlike yourself, who grew up working on a farm, I grew up working at my dad's gas station in California, and two very different types of work, by the way. I mean, both are hard work in their own
Yeah.
way. One to your point, you're working out. The other one, you're just cleaning and changing tires and shit. And so I go to this. I'm 16. I'm kind of soft, because I haven't been baling hay and working on a farm since I was 8 or 9 or however. I'm sure you were really young when you started. How old were you, by the way, when you first started having to do hard labor on the farm?
My dad would probably debate this, but I would say it was probably at 10 years of age, by the way. I can remember driving a combine through town that would so wide that I had to get way over to pass cars. And my dad threw my sister and I right into the mix early. I'd say from 10 on, we were working a lot.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
and that's pretty normal. Like most of my friends who grew up in agriculture, like they were working at tens when I think like 10 is like prior to like child labor. Like that was when like kids went to work.
Right.
Dude, when I was 10 was when my dad put me to work. He was like, all right,
Yeah.
man. Like, and I look at my 10-year-old, I'm like, yeah, if I had, I'd go put that kid to work, you know. And so you're 10 years old and you're working on the farm. Now, myself, my first exposure to this was when I went to Minnesota for wrestling camp. And all the kids, tons of kids from Midwest, all Midwestern kids, bunch of farm kids. And they're rock solid. I mean, these kids are freaking buff, strong. They grab you. Their grip is
Yeah.
hurts you, And I was like, oh shit. These kids have farm muscle. They just beat the hell out. I spent 1 month in Minnesota just getting my ass kicked by farm kids. Um, so when growing up in an agricultural community with your parents as a farmer, and seeing that hardship, when you started the business in your dorm room, obviously you had a good work ethic, but I mean, that's pretty unusual to have started as an independent in 1983. I mean, like, tell us a little bit about that, because like that was like even now we're still in early days of the RIA space compared to other industries. I'd love to hear your thoughts on like, yeah, I'm going to start my own wealth management business when you're in your early 20s. That's kind of crazy. Tell us about
Yeah.
that.
Well, and I would say starting a wealth management business is a stretch. So the way it actually started is someone said, Ron, you can make a lot of money selling life insurance. And so there was a company by the name of, you've heard of Amoco or Standard Oil became Amoco, which then they started an insurance company called Amoco Life. And it was a new kind of insurance called Universal Life was coming out, replacing whole life. And you can make all this money selling insurance. And so I knew nothing about it, but I did know farming. And so I would cold call out of a phone book and go out and see farmers and talk to them about this insurance because they all had insurance. A lot of them had a whole life. And so I did that for like 6 months. I did not like selling insurance. It's like, I'm trying to sell something to someone whether they need it or not. And then after that, because I had no experience, and like you said, no one would hire me. Um, I found somebody that would sponsor me, and it was a small company out of uh, uh, Minnesota called State Bond, itty bitty bitty broker dealer, and they were a mom and pop shop, and they sponsored me to get my securities license, which was my Series 6 at the time, and I just ground it out. Just literally, my wife and I are still together to this day. We were dating then. We've been together since we were 17 years of age, and we were talking about this over the weekend. She would sit in my dorm room and make faces at me, try to make me laugh while I was doing it because I was so disciplined. We wouldn't do anything until I had as many appointments as I could handle with whatever my class schedule was the next day.
Wow. So and what was your product? What was the main product you were selling through these guys?
Mutual funds. That's how it started. I started selling life insurance and I moved to mutual funds. And then after that, I got what was known as a Series 22 direct participation. Then I got my commodities license. Then I got my Series 7. And then I got my principals license. And so I just continued to get everything I could. And then eventually I brought in a few additional advisors. I taught them. One thing I was good at early on was motivation. I could motivate people. I still can. I think it's one of my superpowers. And I was consumed, whether it was Zig Ziglar, Tom Hopkins, Jim Rohn, Tom Peters, and I couldn't get enough of this stuff. And so I could teach I could see potential in people that they couldn't see it in themselves. And so we were selling product in those days. Our profession, thank God, has evolved into a professional profession where people are really discriminate against just a salesman, which I was, versus a really strong technical person. And here's a secret for everybody listening to this podcast, and this will be good for you to know too, since you're newer to the space, is the best salespeople have the most assets. And the best technical people, like the attorneys, the CPAs, the people that are really good at planning, or that this used to be the case, technically the strongest. They don't have any of the assets, but they provide the most value. And what I realized early on is, what if I could bring the best storytellers and salespeople that their ego would allow them to say, I'm not good at this technical stuff.
Mm.
And let's combine that with the strongest technical people we can on the planet. And what kind of business could we build around that? And we give them best technology. We truly put the consumer on the same side. And that's what Carson Group has become today, taking great storytellers and salespeople, mixing them with the strongest technical people we can find to join.
I love that, man. So there's you just reminded me of I think this may have come out of Strength Finders, right? So Gallup Strength Finders, Dr. Oh gosh, I can't believe I'm blanking on this. I'm like I'm a massive Strength Finders guy. I'll remember it. But anyway, I thought it came out of University of Nebraska actually. And
They're right
so
here. I mean, Gallup is right down the road from me.
yeah,
Here,
yeah.
I mean,
No,
yeah,
I'm right on this. Yeah. So Dr. Clifton, excuse me, out of
Clifton,
University,
yes.
yeah, Clifton out of University of Nebraska, Strength Finders. Like what I just heard you say was a Strength Finder statement, which is essentially pairing people, getting people to work in their strengths, right, to work in their sweet spots, and having them collaborate with others whose strengths essentially are synergistic, right?
Mhm.
Getting folks who are those great planners, great financial analytical folks who aren't necessarily the influencers who are going to get the lady down the street to invest her money, because the introvert's not going to like tell the story well enough to get them to feel comfortable, right? They're not getting those around them to feel like they're part of something greater than themselves. So it really sounds like was that something that came natural to you to say, hey, I'm going to get people to work in their genius, but make them collaborate to build something special? Walk us through that a little bit.
It came later. It really hit me after the dot-com meltdown. So from 1983 really through 2000, I was doing it the way everybody else was doing it, but I just had this nagging thing that bothered me, and knew it could and should be done at a much, much higher level than it had been done. I feel financial services, by and large, for many years, I don't feel it's the case today at all, but I think it was a case the first 20 years of my profession, is we overcharged and underdelivered. I mean, the reality was, if someone was hiring me, I had my CFP, but beyond that, they were paying me to guess, right? It was, we were influenced by wholesalers and people coming through and whatever the hot topic was, and we were chasing that stuff like everybody else was. Today, like the analytics and the amount of value that can be created from a deep planning team, like the biggest bargain on the planet. What you get, and I don't believe in paying fees. I don't want anybody to pay a fee. No, you don't want to pay a fee. I don't want to pay a fee, but I'm willing to make an investment in my future, especially if that investment is infinitesimal compared to the enormous value that I'm receiving. And in my mind, I have no question about the value I'm getting versus the investment I'm making. That's where we've evolved to. And once I brought a whole group to Omaha to say, here's this, and I wrote about it in one of my first books. I call it the seamless practice service model. What if we had a model that was seamless, easy for you to operate within as a consumer and an advisor? It's proactive because we're doing and thinking about things you're not thinking about. And what if we can demonstrate, oh, you got kids going to college, you need a medical power of attorney. No one's was doing that kind of stuff. and it be a service that was so powerful that you constantly were surprised and delighted by the people were thinking about things and doing things on your behalf they weren't even thinking about.
Mm.
And that model has proved out to be really powerful, because the best storytellers are like, when they'll admit to me in private, and they would admit it publicly today. But when I first started having this conversation, I said, I'm not a very good advisor when I'm trying to do it all. And once they had your trust, I'd say, I'm not either. I said, what if? And I would share this model. Like, oh my God, that'd be great. It's not like you're not good. I want you to become a librarian, not a library. A librarian of where to get the information, not a library has to store it. A librarian can find and access anything they need. And that's really the ecosystem that we've developed, at the Carson Group.
So that's so interesting what you just said. So there's a word in Japanese that's
Mm.
omotenashi, which is, it means wholeheartedly looking after guests. And so there's, have you ever heard of this before?
No, I've
Yeah.
not.
So I actually had to look up the word really quickly, but my wife's aunt, who's a really like a profound person in the food world and in the world of like food and wine hospitality, she worked for, there's a movie with Bill shoot it's a Japanese movie. Gosh, I'm forgetting it right now. Anyway, today I'm having one of those days. I'm a little slow coming back from the new year. It was Sofia Coppola's movie with Bill Murray, and it takes place in Japan, right, where he's like this like actor in Japan, but it's at this really famous hotel in Tokyo. And my wife's aunt, when she went to Middlebury College in New England, graduated and moved to Japan because she spoke Japanese, and she was taught that omotenashi at this hotel, which was, how do you provide for your guests what they want before they know they want it,
Mm.
right? And so I
Yeah.
heard you just say that with your business, and I was like, I really do believe there's an art form around that. And when we start talking about service orientation, and most importantly, why would you do this? I think there's a couple reasons. For me, when I look at business or think of the way I've built my businesses, it's around creating value, right? How can I create value for my client so that they have an experience that is unmatched to a commoditized world that we live in, right? A commoditized business. If you look at wealth management, right, as an example, or my form of business, mortgage lending and servicing, more or less kind of commoditized, right? Like there's little things you can do to make them different. But how can I quantify that from the perspective of caring? So when you think of your businesses, or when you think of the Carson Group, was that something where you're like, hey, I'm just trying to create a differentiator, or did it come from a deeper place of values, purpose? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
And I want to mention Steve Jobs, because the iPhone, we didn't know we wanted it. I mean, and he, like, until we had it. And that's a great example of not knowing what we want. No, it really came from this deep knowing that it wasn't being done in our profession, but it could be really powerful. It was, and to deliver a lot more value than we were delivering to the consumer. That's really where this born out of. I mean, how could we truly sit on the same side of the table as the people that we're serving? And I view myself as a servant leader, to my, I believe in conscious capitalism.
Yeah.
And John Mackey, who founded Whole Foods, I'm part of his group. They have an amazing, anybody listening to this is interested, they have an amazing conference every fall in Austin, Texas. And, I really believe that there's three constituents. There's the consumer that we serve, but then there's the internal stakeholders. Some people call them employees or staff. At Carson, we call them internal stakeholders. They need to get an equal share, and then the share owner needs to get an equal share, but it really needs to be spread between all three. I had this deep nagging feeling. It's like, it's really being shared, even on the internal stakeholder side. Almost all the benefits going to a few people at the top, and a big portion of it relative to the cost of the service is going to the share owner, and others are being kind of left out. And so this belief in this conscious capitalism model is the most powerful model. And ironically, it is also the best for business, because when you share the benefit equally, people want to do business with you, people want to work with you, people will stay with you. I've got someone tomorrow celebrating their 25th anniversary with me, and in another week we'll have someone celebrate 32-year anniversary at Carson. And we have some people that have never interviewed for a job there. They've interned and they've been there their entire life. And I
Wow.
love that.
That's amazing, man. So you're talking to a fellow conscious capitalist. I graduated. There's a program out of Dallas called Stagen. I don't know if you've heard of it or not.
I'm not.
But John Mackey is he sits on the board of conscious capitalism with Rand Stagen, who started this conscious capitalist institution out of Dallas. And so Jason Buchel, who's currently the CEO of Whole Foods, was actually in my class at Stagen. It was the entire yeah. They're very it's actually a really cool program. And so Rand, who's a former guest on the show, we'll appreciate I'm plugging him right now. But yeah, for organizations who want to train their folks in conscious capitalism, it's a 1-year intensive program on training conscious capitalism. So,
and by the way, they have if you come to a half-day orientation on just a history of capitalism.
yeah.
It is absolutely fascinating. Like, I didn't know where it started, how it started, and the importance of what capitalism has done for humanity, period, all around the world. And
it's crazy.
It's really crazy. It's really fun to
Yeah,
dig into.
the last, I'd say, like 20% of the book Sapiens gives an entire, I don't know if you read that book or not, but it gives the full history of capital. And you're like, like basically they're like, yeah, like the best, like the capitalism, there's parts of capitalism where it's like going to war with capitalism, right? Because like the amount of GDP you could extract from another nation, it was cheaper to do it through force than by, through peace, right? Now it's too expensive to do that. But yeah, it's amazing. I love this idea of stakeholder capitalism, and the fact that you guys are doing that at Carson is just a testament to A, you being a servant leader, and B, building a business that can withstand the test of time, right? This idea of long-termism and looking out for the consumer and your internal stakeholders. And even to use the example, I mean, I don't know if people fully appreciate what you just said. For someone to never apply for a job and to be at your organization and that's just all they know, or for someone to work for you for 32 years, that's insanity. I mean, the average amount of time people work at jobs these days, it's under a couple years, And so I think that's just a testament to building an organization that people feel a part of. There's something greater than themselves. Do you feel like that's something, you being like a servant leader, is that just something that like you were born with? Is it something you were taught? Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so just the opposite. So my dad, by the way, when I do an interview, I used to tell people, I want you to think of this job as a life sentence in a positive way. I want to make it so good that you never want to go anywhere else. And let's work on this together. And if you're not happy, and come to me and we'll see if we can talk about what, or it'll be a safe place. I'll support you while you look for another place to go. It's so many, we have such a big, we call it a boomerang group. People leave because they feel like it must be better out there or could be better, and they come back. And sometimes they're the best as well. And we have a good cross section. No, just the opposite. My dad was someone who grew up as the world was out to get him. Everybody was out to fuck him over. He still believes that to this day. And I'm also a big believer in you get what you believe. Like if you believe that, you attract those kind of people. If you believe in love and abundance, you attract those kind of people. The law of attraction and The Secret is alive and well. And I can see living examples of that. It really came out of my own aha around one of my mentors. His name's Howard Hawks. He's a self-made billionaire right out of Omaha here. And he and I sat on a couple of boards with him, and I said, "What made you so successful, Howard?" And he says, "You know what? I found the best people I could, and I got the hell out of their way, and I really took care of them." And that really got me to thinking, because I was on the opposite end, like my father early on in those first years. I would say there's pre-2000 and post-2000, so Y2K, right? And I would try to get people and get a bargain. And this is the other really powerful life lesson, is you never get a bargain on people. The best people are worth everything you can possibly invest in them. And because they deliver so much more than if you feel like you're getting somebody on the under the market, or that's a mirage. It never, ever, ever happens. And I also realize it's a really fun way to support people that could go out and start their own business and run their own business and compete with you, but they've decided that it's they have everything they need under the roof. So let's do it together. Let's do it in harmony with one another. It's just a really powerful, fun way to build and run a business.
I love that, man. So you're talking about like this idea of abundance versus scarcity, because I think that's a concept that we hear a lot about in the, when you're, especially as an entrepreneur, if you want to get into business or having an abundance mentality, there's these things that are just kind of in the zeitgeist. They're out there that we hear a lot about. And I think there's one way is to think about it logically and to understand it, and another is to really, I guess, emotionally get it. For you, especially, sounds like you grew up in an environment, and I get it, right? I think coming from agricultural boom bust, you have these seasons when things don't grow, or you have these bad
Yeah.
seasons, which is totally common in that industry. Man, you kind of see that the world is not easy, right? And I don't think the world is necessarily an easy place. I was talking to my wife's aunt about this conversation the other day, when I was in Napa, and I said, you know I can't control anything about how people feel, but I can control how I react to it, right? Which is kind of that same idea
Mhm.
of this abundance or scarcity. It's a mindset, it's a belief system. You can believe that the world is for you or against you, if life is happening to you or for you, as some say. So were you someone, let me just, I'm going to be vulnerable with you for a second. I grew up in an environment. My dad was forced out of his country. He was an Iranian man. My mom's American, grew up in a steel mill town in Western Pennsylvania. So hardcore scarcity mentality. My mom's
Mhm.
dad was a peasant from Italy. Her mom grew up in Depression, United States. So I grew up in an environment where it was like super scarcity. Like everything around me was scarcity. And and it took me, I don't know, I'm 45 years old. It took me 44 years to untangle that. Right. It took me,
Mhm.
last year was when I kind of flipped the switch to getting away from it. It's still a struggle sometimes. For you, was it something where you were like pickled in scarcity and then overcame it, or were you someone that just naturally an abundant type of thinker?
No, it was so both my parents would tell my sister and I all the time, we were so poor growing up, even the poor thought we were poor. And my dad, the little house he grew up in, I used to go stay with my grandparents when I was, younger, preteen, and they had no running water. We had an odd house out in the middle of the grove of trees out back, and five kids grew up in this itty bitty, I mean it probably is like maybe 500 square feet, 450 square feet, with no running
Wow.
water. My dad, even to this day, if you sit down to eat with him, Darius, he eats so fast. I go, Dad, like slow down a little bit, because there was only so much food that went on, and as fast as they could eat it, they would clear the food because they were hungry all the time. And my mom grew up in Ohio, same thing. So no, we lived, and my grandparents lived through the Great Depression. So we totally lived in this. And up until literally when I was 50 years of age, this was like, I was so unhappy when I got to 50, because I'm like, I'd viewed my life up to 50 as preparing for life after 50. I told myself I'm
Mm,
going to really go for it after that. My mom passed away. I'd done lots of therapy. I was driven financially I kept thinking the next thing, the next number was going to make me happy. And pretty soon I realized that that wasn't true. And I was going to have to change something deep inside of me, because no matter how good it was, I was waiting for this house of cards to come fucking tumbling down. And I was a fraud and I didn't deserve it. And it was, and I finally met a gentleman who's also from Iran. His name's Kurosh. I call him my cosmic father, because he truly gave me joy. And I spent a whole week out in Venice, California with him. And at the end of it, I was like, man, I've got ways of thinking about my life entirely. He's still to this day a good friend of mine. We talk all the time. He comes to Nebraska 6, 7 times a year. We hang out. We have a healing ranch just north of here where we help people like myself make that conversion out of that operating system. And then, boy, when the switch flipped, two things happened. One, I felt my favorite, it was growing up as a kid, my favorite day was Christmas Eve. My sister and I would lay in bed. We wouldn't sleep the whole night, and Santa Claus was coming. That's the happiest I can ever remember being as a kid. And I truly feel like I'm a 9-year-old on Christmas Eve almost every day of my life. I mean, love my life that much, and my life loves me back. But it was really after making that switch. And here's the other thing. I mean, financially, I was doing well, but opportunity just accelerated in people, connections, people wanting to do business with us that I used to have to go after hard and really sell hard to get. Now people are just opting in, to what we're doing. And so not only do I enjoy life more, business is accelerating at a much faster pace than ever in my life.
Do you think that it's, I mean, obviously there was a shift in, you, right? And
Yeah.
and this happened, a few years ago, as you mentioned. And what do you think, like, because I've had the same shift, personally. Mine happened a little bit earlier. It happened at 43, 44. Same idea though. Like I was like, I had everything you just said. Like I did a podcast on it. I called The World's Biggest Lie. If X happens, Y, I will be happy, right?
Mhm.
If thens, right? And then
Yeah.
and the number just keeps going up, and you're like, when I exit, or when I sell this, or when I have X
Yeah.
amount of dollars, then all of a sudden I'm going to be X. I'm going to be the happy, whatever you want to name, fill in the blank. And for me, what did it for me was I exited my business and I had this payday, and I was a pretty anxious person before that financially, even though any logical person would have looked at my balance sheet and been like, "Are you like out of your mind?" Right? And so then I had the exit, which is like what I had told myself I would. When that happened, then I could start to live my life. And then a year later, I was like more anxious than I'd ever been before. And I had this moment where I was like, I'm either going to live the rest of my fucking life miserable because nothing's going to make me happy, or I got to fix this. Like this guy's got to change because I can't escape me, you know. And I did some work with Dr. Joe Dispenza and a bunch of stuff, right? But I had kind of this God moment where I was like, all right, man, like with me what you will. And then to your point though, after that, like life, I don't know, my shoulders just kind of loosened. I was like, all right, like I'm good, and like the world's not out to get me. I'm here to I'm here to just provide value to the world, and we'll see what happens. For you, has it been something like that? Like, tell us a little more about that. I'd love to hear. This is my story.
Yeah.
I want to hear yours.
So there was I had read, it was in the mid 90s at some point. I read this article about this guy who had sold his business for $2 billion. And the whole article was about how miserable he was. Like he was miserable before, but he's really miserable now because what little bit of joy he had was around his business and the people in it. And all of a sudden that was gone. And so that really got to me to thinking. It's like, if this person, had that kind of exit, there is no number that's going to truly make you happy. And fortunately, I got friends that know the drill sergeant Ron that worked all the time, and now the Omani version of that same human, and how much the I'm relaxed. I take time for family. I've got my grandson home with me today. We're just it's just a pace of life that is really, really fun. And even in our community, I've built this community of people that up at our ranch. We call it the Healing Ranch. It's where I grew up. I'm still in farming, by the way. So Jeannie and I are still very much. She's a farm girl as well, and we have these living principles. Like uh, self sovereignty, be curious, um, really make time to have to play, have fun and play. We think that's such a vital part of being human and being alive. I think I had lost all of that. I was a curious person, but I didn't ever have any fun. I certainly didn't ever play. And so it was really a mindset shift. And I did psychedelic therapy. Now, I know this could probably be a little controversial, but psychedelic therapy is going to be I think it's going to transform consciousness on our planet
Yeah,
in such a beautiful way. I think a lot of people I did. I remember doing a paper on psychedelics when I was in high school, and it's like, oh, it's going to make you go crazy. That's not true. MDMA it just went through phase 3 trials. I'm 99% positive it's going to be a really powerful healing therapy for everybody by this time next year. The VA is already doing studies. I'm friends with the doctor running the study here in Omaha for the VA with psilocybin, which is people know as mushrooms. And people did this stuff like in the 60s and they did it in a party. I'm talking about a deep therapeutic kind of process where there's prep work and there's post integration and there's a lot of support around this. Without psychedelics, without my psychedelic therapy, I could have never settled down long enough to have this happen. Oddly enough, I'm going to go back to Karosh. At the end of that week, his deal he made with me is I'll spend all this time with you, but when you come out here, I want you to unplug. I don't want you on your phone. I don't want you doing business. You can walk, you can get massages. You're going to be meeting with me, but that's it. And so I consumed all kinds of, I just walked everywhere you can imagine down there when I wasn't with Karosh on audiobooks. And literally, I was getting ready. I'm actually a pilot. I was getting ready. I was filing my flight plan to fly back to Omaha. Sitting there, waiting for him to come back in the room. And I go, oh, I got one more question I want to ask him. I said, hey, Karosh, I said, uh, do you know anything about psychedelics? And he goes, I do. What would you like to know? And I said, well, am I a candidate to do some of this based on the week we spent together? And he said, absolutely. And I'm thinking, where was this all week? I mean, why am I bringing this up to you as I'm getting ready to walk out of your office, right? He said, listen, this medicine will call you when it's ready for you. The fact you ask for it means, and then quite a few months went by. He referred me to another doctor that was operating underground to do this work. And by the way, the same doctor today is, he's an amazing family friend. And, my spouse and my kids have gone through this process because, some of the same stuff that plagued me, I transferred to them. Just you do it genetically and you also do it through your actions. And so this is, Karosh was a big piece of it, but then my psychedelic therapy was another, being able to um, become spiritual. My parents were atheists growing up. I had no spiritual belief. And my very first experience, I came out of it going, there's something beyond just, there's something out there. There's a God, there's a source, there's whatever your
Mm-hmm.
belief is. And the more work I've done, I've gone from believing to knowing. I mean, I have absolutely no question about where we go. There might be someone as spiritual as me, uh, but no more. I mean, I am all in. I mean, I am 100% believer, and the power that gave me to enjoy my life, knowing that this is merely a speck of time relative to our soul's journey.
Yeah, I love that, man. Gosh, we could do a whole show
Oh yeah,
on
I could go
this.
hours on this. I become
Yeah.
so, because you can imagine I dig in, and I've gone to Mexico and trained with the Siri tribe with Bufo. I'm going to the Amazon to sit with the Seiko Pai, who have we're going to sit with medicine that's been in their tribe for over 1,000 years. It's just, these are just plants from the Amazon that we're going to experience. And it's really been a profound, and I've met some of the most beautiful, coolest um, friendships, through this journey as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've like a lot of people when they're younger, you get this perspective around those types of things because they're not done, I guess, as a ceremony or in the form of medicine, right? They're done as party or
Right.
that's they're done to party, right? You're
Yeah.
people smoke weed or do whatever, all
Oh,
those
and
different
there's all
things.
kinds of shit mixed in with it too. I mean, there's the
Yeah,
fentanyl and this is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking
no,
about a medical supervised. I just met with a lady. She's from Omaha. She runs a clinic in Cancun, and it's a boga. Have you heard of a boga before?
no,
Darius? It's an
no.
African root. Here's the thing. And do some research on this because she's actually working with the state of Kentucky for the opioid abatement settlement that and they just appropriated 42 million for ibogaine or iboga treatment. Ibogaine slash iboga is just, as it's the same plant, different alkaloids, has a 97% cure rate for any addiction, heroin, alcoholism, where in the US we treat people with methadone, which has a very poor success rate, and you have to be on it forever. Ibogaine or Iboga treatments have a huge success rate one time. And she was a heroin addict, she was an alcoholic, and never had the desire again. And you don't have to take anything, after that. You literally, it interrupts the withdrawal symptoms. And I just feel like if you looked at, there's a documentary on, or there's a movie called Painkillers. It's about the Oxycontin. I don't know if you
Yeah,
watched it or
I
not.
saw
That
that.
compound, I mean, this is where, the FDA was paid off. There was, you follow the money, because if we didn't follow the money, a lot of these plants that have been around for thousands, have been used for tens of thousands of years, been around since the inception of time. No one can patent. And that way there's no interest. And we've got the big pharma fighting us on every front, i.e. methadone versus ibogaine, for a true cure. I didn't used to be, and I don't believe, didn't used to believe in conspiracy theories, but it's hard not to when you really get into the meat of some of the bullshit that's going on, in our world today. And this is one of them.
Yeah. This is oh wow. I knew we'd go down some rabbit holes. I'm glad we're going down this one. So I want to take a step back because I think that something you said was really interesting. You ended up in this world where you were sounded like you grinding, right? Just like grinding and not doing it in a way that felt joyful, at least. And that's my interpretation. I don't know if
You nailed it. I mean,
right.
let me give you an example. We just came through the holidays. I was grinding so hard. I'd be up in the morning. I'd normally get to the office around, 5 a.m. and I would get up and work out before I went into the office. I'd get home between 9 and 10 o'clock at night. My
Wow.
kids, Chelsea, who's my oldest today, but first 10, 12 years of her life, I mean, I hardly ever saw her. And I was so exhausted. I remember on Christmas Eve, no one else was working, I would pass out. I was so freaking tired all the time that I couldn't even show up and be there for my family. I would always tell my wife, Jeannie, who's like an absolute saint, it's like, oh, I'm doing it for the family. I'm doing it for this. I'm doing it so we don't have to ever be poor, which was a lie. I knew it was a lie when I was saying it because we had more money than we were ever going to spend. But I was so afraid of not being busy all the time because when I paused, then I got to look inside myself going, I don't like me.
Mm,
I'm not worthy of this. I'm not, whatever the story is that I had carried for whatever reason. My father was very abusive to me and my mom, and so I was sexually traumatized by my a relative when I was 6 years old. So I think all of that kind of piled up and allowed me to feel like I just wasn't a worthy human being. So I just worked all the time. That was my addiction. The work was to cover the feelings around feeling because I didn't want to feel. I just wanted to be busy and exhausted all the time.
yeah, it's so interesting. Like I have God, we have so much overlap, but like you just told me part of my life back to me, but this idea around being addicted to distraction, right? And for me, it took leaving my business, being stuck in my house with COVID with nothing to do because I didn't have a business to distract me, and figuring out the next thing to distract me and then being unhappy again and seeing this like and having enough space. I started doing a lot of meditation then, so I started building up that muscle around reaction, and then I started seeing it, and then I started to I actually did a little bit of the medicine work you're talking about, and
Mm.
it came out during a journey, and I was like, whoa. Like what came out of my journey was hungry ghost showed up, and
Yeah.
one of my closest friends was like, I'm talking to your hungry ghost right now. And it was this thing where like nothing would feed me enough to make me full, right? And but I say all that because my question for you is, some people might have listened to what you just said, and obviously like objectively in a world that measures success based off of financial success, right? People would look at yourself or me and be like, those guys are successful people, right? Right? Like that's an objective statement depending on who you're comparing us to. Compare us against Elon Musk, we're poor. If you compare us against,
Right.
the average person, we're like doing pretty good, right? Um, but someone that's listening to this, they might say, "Oh yeah, see, I shouldn't have to. I don't want to have to work hard, right? Like those guys, they're saying that I should, enjoy life, and I should, I should have, balance and all this stuff, right? Like that's what I'm hearing from them. But I
Yeah.
think there's something that's missing from that. And I'm really curious what your thoughts are around having is there ever a time where a season for grinding makes sense, knowing that you need to also have an awareness around balance?
Yeah, no, you bring up a really important point here is I want to redefine it though. Like to when I hear a grind, I hear I think that the connotation to that is I'm doing something I absolutely hate doing, but I got to do it because it's going to make me better and stronger. That's a myth. It truly is a myth. Let's come back to Gallup Strength Finders. Man, let's find and my three kids, all of them have been very successful. And all along I said, do what you love. Do what you love. I'm not saying, listen, I'm passionate. I still get up at wee hours in the morning and I'm up late, but I'm doing things I love to do. I mean, love to do. And that's where I think the mismatch is, Darius, is people feel like I got to pay dues. And I wrote a book called Sustainable Edge. And the whole idea around the sustainable edge was balance leads to growth and growth leads to balance. And it's a virtuous positive cycle and you need to feed them. Don't confuse this with being a lazy ass, sitting on the couch, eating chips every day, binging Netflix. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about living your life with intention. We talked about whether it's a heroin addict or a workaholic, they're covering up because they haven't found their real deep purpose. As human beings, we are ascending to where we have purpose. And doing purposeful work will not feel like a grind, but not to be confused with not putting a lot of energy into it.
Yeah, man, I love that, and I appreciate what you just said because and I think it's hard, right? Because I think sometimes when we're I think passionate about things, at least for me, I'll speak for myself right now. I'll get really overly passionate and I'll start grinding because it's like I've built that muscle up. That muscle is fucking strong, dude.
Yeah.
And it goes quick and it's like, let's go time, baby.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, shit, man, I just worked like 14 hours days like for the last 3 weeks in a row. And then I get a little burnt out. And usually that's my like signal to slow down. I started doing transcendental meditation last year and I have
Ooh,
a
I
coach.
love it.
Yeah, and my TM coach is like, she's like, pay attention to what happens during your meditations, and if you fall asleep during your meditations, that means you're not well rested, and it's just something to be aware of, right? Just having an awareness. And my conscious capitalist mentor says, with awareness comes choice, and with choice comes responsibility. So then I make that responsible choice to, hey, do I need to pull back? Do I need to rest? Because I want to be able to show up for more game time. You know what I mean? Like the stuff you're talking about.
Like sleep, one of the things I prioritize in my life now for the last 10 years is getting the best. There's a book it's called Power Sleep, Dr. Moss from Columbia University. It's like the Bible for me. How do you get into a deep therapeutic REM, deep cycle sleep? Because he said, three things are going to drive your health: diet, exercise, and sleep. And he says sleep is twice as important as the other two combined. And he goes, the irony is people would I'd get up early and deprive myself of sleep to go work out. Well, shit, I like sleeping a lot more than I like working out.
Yeah.
And the sleep is way better for me than working out.
What's the name of that book again?
Power Sleep.
All
Dr.
right.
Maas, Maas.
I've been having, we were talking earlier that I just started a new business, and so I've been up. I started waking up early, like no matter what time I go to bed, I'm waking up at 4 or 5 in the morning, which I'm normally like actually I can wake up at any time, but I'm an 8 hour guy sleep person, and suddenly I became a 5 or 6 hour sleep person, but like I'm not even anxious. It's just like subtle, like little. I think that my hormones are jacked up from like the excitement, right? And one thing I started doing over this Christmas, and I've been struggling with this. I've been talking to my friends. I'm like, hey man, I'm like not sleeping as much. I'm tired, and I started doing saunas. Right, I started doing dry sauna every day. And so I mean, like I did it over Christmas break, and yesterday I did it for 30 minutes, and then I went and ran, and then I slept like a freaking baby, man. Like that. I don't know if you've ever done that, but that's helped a lot for me.
Can I share three quick biohacks that I love?
Yeah.
So I have a sauna, infrared and red light therapy. If you've not done red light,
Mm-mm.
it's powerful. It's an attachment you can put in the sauna. It will just your psyche, your mood, your general state of health. Also, I do Rasha. There's a Rasha machine. It's spelled Rasha. It really puts your mind for meditation and really deep levels of consciousness work. And then there's a company out of Reno, this Dr. North, is called a shift wave machine. And I have one at the Carson Group. I have one up at our Healing Ranch. And it's really vibrational. And all three of these can add so much energy and restorative benefits to your life that, we call them biohacks, but they're out there for a reason. I mean, you just talked about the infrared sauna, slowing down to speed up. Sometimes just taking care of being selfish to be selfless. Let's take care of ourselves first so we have unlimited energy that we can share with others versus how I used to do it. I depleted myself so bad. I had nothing for me and I had nothing for anybody else. And so putting time, scheduling time in your day to take care of the golden goose is really important here.
I love that. Omani, man, where you been my whole life, man? We got to hang out. I love this.
I'd love to hang out, and I love for you. I did this gathering this year in October. We had 324 people from all over the world come to the ranch for 4 days. It's October this next year. I'd love to have you as my guest. Come and just meet. You'll meet some of the most incredible people in the world. Deepak Chopra will be there. Rick Doblin will be there. Chris Bosch will be there. We have amazing music. We'll have 11 different acts playing. So you have an invite to come experience that.
I'm taking you up on it. You're going to see me.
Yeah.
If we don't see each other before. I have a quick question, and I want to go to the greatness question with you. Do you know Jay Wilkinson in Lincoln, Nebraska?
Jay and I were just communicating about a half hour before we got on because I'm speaking at his conference this year.
All right.
But Jay is like, he's a brother for sure.
He's a brother of mine as well. So he and I are part of a entrepreneurs group out of MIT called Gathering of Titans. I just saw him a few weeks ago at Stagen. But yeah, like he and I had a great conversation last year. Anyway, he's a friend. He's a former guest on the show.
He was at the gathering this year, and he'll be there next year. Him and his wife, Tanya, brought their RV, which we also are burners. We go to Burning Man. I don't know if you're a burner or not.
I'm not, but I'm a San Francisco guy.
You want to be. You want to come to Burning Man.
It's on my list. So I lived in San Francisco for 17 years, and I moved to Austin about 7 years ago. And everyone, I mean, San Francisco it's where Burning Man started, right? So everyone there's
it's awesome.
My wife wasn't into it, so we never went. But I have a lot of friends that are involved, so maybe
the
there as
gathering would be a good in between. It's because we have lodging and food, everything set up for you. We're on the playa. You've got to fend for yourself.
Yeah. Well, that sounds amazing. Anyway, I was like, I bet you Omani knows Jay.
Yeah, I do.
So you're talking about a lot of the conversation we're having. He and I have had the same conversation. So, all right, we got to get this wrapped up. I want to respect the time. So we have the greatness question. I'd love it if you could answer it in just a question. I'm going to ask it, and then you can give us your answer, and then I'll get you on your way, Omani. I appreciate your time today. So what is the number one barrier to creating greatness that you've overcome in your life, and how did you overcome it?
Surrounding myself with the best people I could find versus trying to get a bargain. It really stemmed from that scarcity mindset. When you shift your operating system to love and abundance, everything will show up like you can't believe. I just recently, someone recommended a book called The Go-Giver, which is 5 basic principles, which these are things I were operating on before I even knew the book existed. It is so true. It works. And I also want to mention to your listeners, the only social media I do is LinkedIn. I put out a 2-minute video every week on all of these different topics, whether it's biohacks, productivity systems. And if interested, love to have you follow me on LinkedIn.
Omani, so much gratitude from here at the Greatness Machine. Man, I'm so thankful to have gotten to meet you and to spend time with you. I'm so appreciative for all the positive energy and greatness you're bringing to this world. So thank you so much for being on here today.
Thank you for having me, Darius. Thank you.
So you guys, you heard it here first. Go follow Omani on LinkedIn. We'll put all the links for the Carson Group, Omani, for your LinkedIn profile, and go follow him. Like, you got some great content going on LinkedIn. And man, Omani, thank you for all your goodness and amazingness. And until next time, peace out. We love you, everybody. She's my lover. You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Listen, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform that you're tuning in on. so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. We have tons of great people coming on, and we're stoked to have you here to enjoy it with us. Leave us a review. Tell us what you love most about this particular episode. We love getting the reviews. We love to see what you guys love most. And if this particular episode, made you think of someone who's leveling up in their business and in their life, print screen, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers. And after all, we're all here to support and grow with each other. And in case you want to see some of the fun behind the scenes shots or some of the things that we're doing, I'm actually writing about this in my weekly newsletter. Go to www.therealdarius.com and subscribe to my newsletter. We're talking about fun things like business and life and mindfulness and cryptocurrencies and gosh, I don't even know, everything and anything, but it's tons of fun stuff I write about. I try to get it out on a weekly basis. You can subscribe at www.therealdarius.com. And with that said, look, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We're out of here. See you guys on the next one.
She's my lover.